So, over the weekend, I also managed to watch Ireland Tonga. Obviously, it was a pretty heavy defeat by Tonga, but I think there was a few key things that we can take out of this game for both sides that I think were pretty interesting. First of all, Ireland look incredibly strong with Johnny Sexton at 10. I know he came off after the first half because the job was done, but having him back and him playing the way he is so big for Ireland. And I'm personally amazed that a 39-year-old player can come in and play at such a high level, even with that much time off of rugby, even kind of since injuries and not playing in any of the warm-up games. He looks like he hasn't missed a beat. If I was to do the power rankings again today, I would say that Ireland are probably in that 1 or 2 spot. I might even be tempted to probably put them at 1. I think Ireland-South Africa will be a very, very interesting game. I still think South Africa have the advantage for what I've spoken about in the past in terms of their ability of having 2 packs that they can bring on that are world class, but I think Ireland have more of a chance to beat South Africa than Scotland did, just because I think they'll be able to break through the line. They have more options available to them than Scotland did. And should Ireland beat if Ireland should beat South Africa, then I really think they are top of the power rankings for this World Cup and they take that position. So Ireland was sensational. For Tonga, I thought at the beginning that they were typically not putting their forwards in the right channels for clearing out rucks and supporting backs in their attacking moves. Typically, what you will usually see with offensive play is that there will be certain forwards that will be dedicated to a certain lane, looking at the pitch from top to bottom, one side here, one side here. Typically, split those into quarters and split your forwards evenly throughout those quarters so that they're not just running from ruck to ruck and they can be in support for attack. I don't think maybe they really paired the players right across the pitch. I noticed that specifically when Tonga went wide, that they tended to get isolated a little bit. I think maybe on the far channels for both sides of Tonga, they were putting mainly just back rowers back there. Maybe they could have done with someone a little bit heavier, maybe a front rower in there or a second thrower in there to help with clean outs. And I think early in the game, that was a factor for Tonga for sure, that they weren't allowing bigger players to get over to the sides to help in ruck and maul formations just to keep the ball. Something I noticed as well in this game is that the ref was much keener to call obstruction on high kick defence, which I think is nice to see. Something that we're seeing more and more often is that for a high kick defence, typically there may be like a row of players that just magically seem to form in front of the guy that's jumping for the ball to basically, they don't change their lines to be there, but it's obviously a call to get in that position so that you're not technically changing your line, but you are also creating an obstruction for the opposition to try and compete for a ball. I noticed in this game specifically, the refs are catching up to this. They're starting to call it, and that's really good because I feel like this tactic where we have this wall that's walling off competition for high ball is neutralising some attacking play. So that's great that this is starting to get called out. So something that Squidge Rugby, I've got this from Squidge Rugby in terms of Ireland's powerful forward play that is almost kind of like a lazy forward play, has been really effective in this game. The reason I say lazy is because it's not lazy for kind of like lack of effort, but it's just kind of working smart rather than working hard. Typically, they will keep the forwards all within one position and go inside, 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 and then that will draw defenders in, and then they can ship it wide rather than forwards running all over the place. And that worked really, really well against Tonga. I think they managed to break through the line a few times with the forwards, and then that set up the spaces on the outside for them. And it ultimately kind of led to part of Ireland's dominance in this game. There was an Ireland line out to set up the try that was just, man, it was so good. I did get a text from a friend saying basically like, is that forward? And I think it was flat. I think it was really well worked. It's basically a line out catcher catches it and then pops it off to a already formed maul, which is basically causing misdirection of where to defend against the counter maul. Tonga were pretty alert to it and they managed to counter maul a little bit, but they didn't have enough to stop ultimately the try. And as more and more time goes by, the moves that you see off lineouts get more intricate and more complicated, and the misdirection involved with it is getting cooler and cooler to see. So I thought that was a really well worked try, and I really enjoyed it. I think Tonga's backs' inability to ruck and maul properly and get in support play really kind of hindered their attacking as well. This kind of ties into the first point I made about Tonga, about their forwards not being in the right channels. I think that their backs were maybe a little bit hesitant to get involved in rucks. If you're there and someone needs a clear out for a ruck, you just have to do it. It's, I think, one of the great things about New Zealand in terms of all players can play all positions, which means that you always have the right player in the right position, because say the winger gets tackled, the outside centre's the first man there, he can go in and ruck straight away. Tonga, I didn't think, had that universal ability to ruck and clear out, and I think that's why they got a lot of their attacks kind of cut short. And yeah, Ireland really kind of punished Tonga through two plays. There was two plays for tries that really opened up Tonga from my eyes. Was the pass to the outside and then passing on the inside, where the inside man isn't necessarily on like the inside of the fly half, but he's even like the other side of the ruck, and he has looped round an attack so that he's completely just not taken into consideration in defence, and then the pass goes inside and then it creates a gap. It's a really interesting way of creating space when there is none, and kind of using both sides of your attack on both sides of the ruck or whatever the breakdown is to bring players around and create spaces where they weren't before, because people are obviously set up for man-to-man, and it can take advantage of maybe a slightly slower forward on the guard of a ruck not being able to run around and cover the player that's maybe broken out the back of the ruck and come in for the inside play. I think that's really, really intelligent attacking rugby from Ireland, and I'm excited to see how South Africa will defend this if they do the same thing to them as well. And one last point I want to make about Ireland is that Conor Murray made some really nice grubber kicks that sliced up the defence and really put the rush defence of Tonga on the back foot. Obviously, South Africa are known very much for their very aggressive defensive style, so it makes me think that maybe Conor Murray may get the start against South Africa, mainly because of his ability to do these grubber kicks. Grubber kicks are amazing at making the defense just kind of take a step backwards, because it means that it just stops them committing straight away to thinking it's going to be a tackle straight off the off. Obviously, if you rush up too far and someone grubbers in behind you, it's a completely open space. So yeah, I think Conor Murray might get the start just for his ability to do those kicks. Gibson Park also is capable of this, but I think Conor Murray is a little bit better than him, and so I feel like he might get the start in the matchup against South Africa later in the tournament. And that was it for me, really. Tonga have got some things to work on. I think they played okay. They made some unforced errors that were unfortunate for themselves. I think they have potential, but I don't see them launching off at any point in time like Fiji have, for example, in terms of being genuine competitors. But it was a fun game. It was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. But yeah, Ireland for me, top of the power rankings, probably drawing with South Africa, with a really eye-watering matchup between the two coming up later on. And yeah, that's it for me for this game.
Illuminati confirmed.